Inaz and the Two Unmarriageable Lovers. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 4 books. Book 1. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the real love story of 2 unmarriageable lovers. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 21. A friend in need is a friend indeed. On the day of her arrest, Inaz has been severely flogged by a huge Saudi female police interrogator who looked like 2 men in one body. Through that torture technique, the apprehended Sudanese wife has been forced to admit to everything that has been written against her. For dressing as a man and running away from her husband, the Riyadh police accused her of committing 5 serious offenses. For venturing out of her apartment without the knowledge, consent, and company of her husband or her male muharram, she has been held guilty of committing other 4 social infringements. For appearing in public without the compulsory woman's Islamic clothes, such as hijab, abaya, or niqab, she has been charged with other 3 religious offenses. For lying to the Sudanese embassy and demanding the reissuing of her passport and air ticket, she added yet other 6 legal offenses. Because she entered the ladies' washroom while dressed up as a male and frightened the hell out of an innocent Muslim girl, she has been considered guilty of 3 other social offenses. Yet, by exposing the nakedness of the same good female citizen in the toilet, she added to her list of charges 2 more immoral offenses. By falsely accusing her lawful Sudanese husband, Mr. Osama Hashim Sulla, of being a heavy drunkard, an addictive gambler, a filthy gay who practices sodomy, and a disgusting pimp, Inaz committed other terrible 4 abominable offenses. Furthermore, by saying that her husband had never slept with her though she stayed with him for 6 months, she is guilty of maliciously defaming a good Muslim man with the intention of destroying his reputation and his life as well. By saying her husband admitted to her that he conducted a gay marriage with another man, the rebellious wife has committed the crime of character assassination against a highly educated Sudanese man who has a good job in one of the biggest oil companies in the kingdom. By claiming that her husband had sold her as a sexy female slave through gambling to 7 Saudi men, Inaz has become guilty of falsely accusing good Saudi citizens plus her Sudanese husband. Finally, Inaz has been told by her female interrogator her pregnancy has refuted all her false accusations against her husband. In consequence of her escape from her lawful husband, Inaz Ahmed Sulla has committed 37 criminal acts which all punishable by the blessed Sharia of Allah and His infallible Prophet Muhammad. Notwithstanding, when those 2 former Sudanese student terrorists who used to study with her in India had approached the Riyadh police after 3 days from the day she got detained and harshly interrogated, and they exposed her sinful life, adultery, and marital status in India, the charges against the female suspect Inaz Ahmed Sulla has reached a record of 50 serious offenses. No human being in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had ever been suspected of such an unbelievable number of crimes. Even the Indian-born English novelist and critic, Salman Rushdie, who wrote the Satanic Verses, and the American pastor Terry Jones, who burned the Holy Quran of Muslims, had not committed the number of offenses that the rebellious Sudanese wife Inaz has committed. It had never happened in the Muslim world that a woman had dared to marry 2 men at the same time. That abominable act had not happened even in the lands of the Western infidels who allow a man to marry a man and a woman to wed another woman. So, her so-called greatest crimes have been boiled down to one great crime of having 2 husbands at the same time. For that reason, the Sudanese lawyer, Mr. Ahmed Sulla, who studied the Islamic Sharia law at the greatest Islamic center of learning, the prestigious Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University in Cairo, has ignored all those 49 offenses against his daughter and focused on that last one crime of polyandry. He knew and understood that if his daughter stands before the Islamic judges at the Sharia court in Riyadh City with that terrible crime of having 2 husbands at the same time, even the Prophet Muhammad himself, if he happens to be alive, cannot save her from the stoning to death. He read in the newspaper that his daughter had run away from her Arab husband, dressed up as a man, accused her cousin, who is the lawful husband, of being a gay and gambler who sold his Sudanese virgin bride as a female sex slave to other 7 Arab men who all raped her in his apartment, and so on and so on. Nevertheless, the Sudanese lawyer ignored all those serious 49 charges and decided at once to find a quick solution to the last offense of having 2 husbands at the same time. He knows polygamy in Islam is allowed to Muslim men in the Quran, Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3, but polyandry is not permitted for Muslim women. It is an abominable crime punishable by either beheading or stoning to death. On that day, the 2 frightened Arab brothers, the proud lawyer Mr. Ahmed Saleh and the famous medical doctor Mr. Hashim Saleh, arrived at the mansion of the wealthy business tycoon Mr. Harun Al-Ajabo and fell at his feet and begged him to convince his good African son Tariq to make a written official statement of his divorce of his ex-wife Anaz. The so-called Black Karabi, who has an ugly son who supposedly as black as a crow, has assured them he can fly in person to Egypt and obtain their urgent request from his son Tariq, who is studying engineering at the Cairo University. Mr. Ahmed Saleh kissed the head, hands, and feet of Mr. Harun Al-Ajabo and thanked him 1,000,000 times for his compassion and kindness. He also said to him, if we have 10 good Muslim men like you in our city, then Khartoum will be the holy Mecca in Sudan. Moreover, the troubled father also volunteered to fly to Cairo with the wealthy business tycoon and meet his good son Tariq Harun Al-Ajabo and kiss his hands and feet and beg him to save the life of his former wife and good girlfriend Anaz Ahmed Saleh. The African boyfriend Tariq cried as if he lost his parents when he learned that his beloved Arab girlfriend Anaz is in a Saudi women's prison and accused of the terrible crime of having 2 husbands at the same time. When he overcame his sorrow, he determined not only to make the statement of divorcing his ex-wife, but he suggested to her frightened father and his wealthy father to go in person to Saudi Arabia and repeat verbally the same divorce statement inside the Sharia court. Mr. Ahmed Saleh fell on his knees and wept like a baby upon hearing the words of the boy whom he used to hate from the deepest of his heart and called him a black, ugly crow. The proud Sudanese lawyer decided to travel to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia along with the son of their former fur neighbors. Mr. Harun Al-Ajabo approved the decision of his good son and encouraged him to go in person and save the life of his Arab girlfriend Anaz. Tariq Harun Al-Ajabo had already traveled many times with his wealthy Muslim family to Saudi Arabia and performed the Hajj rituals. Accordingly, his application for a visa to fly immediately to Riyadh City has been instantly approved. But the application of the proud Sudanese lawyer, Mr. Ahmed Saleh, has been rejected without giving any reason. No matter how he pleaded and how he requested to be allowed to fly to Riyadh City and attend the trial of his falsely accused Arab daughter Anaz, the Saudi ambassador at Cairo refused to change his decision. Even the Sudanese business tycoon, Mr. Harun Al-Ajabo, met the ambassador personally and begged him to allow his good Arab friend, the Sudanese lawyer, the gentleman Mr. Ahmed Saleh, to go to the capital of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and attend the trial of his beloved daughter Anaz, but the stubborn Saudi diplomat man refused to acquiesce. Finally, when nothing worked, the extremely troubled father of Anaz and the kind father of Tariq have both given the African boyfriend their blessings and sent him to the kingdom of Tartarus to save the life of his beloved Arab girlfriend from the sword of the executioner or the stones of the righteous men of Allah and his infallible Prophet Muhammad. Chapter 22. The final verdict of the Sharia court. 90% of the audience who came to attend the trial of the rebellious wife are Sudanese people who are working in Saudi Arabia. They came to see the despicable Sudanese wife who committed those hundreds of offenses and stigmatized the beautiful name of Sudan. Among all her crimes, the audience singled out the abominable crime of marrying 2 men at the same time. Next to that hideous crime came her terrible accusations to her Sudanese husband. How she dared to call a Sudanese man a gay and pimp who sold his wife as a female sex slave to 7 Saudi men. Not a single one of all over 1 million Sudanese in Saudi Arabia believed that a Sudanese husband could do such a nefarious deed. Even her father, after he kissed Tariq goodbye at the Cairo International Airport, began to think of those unbelievable accusations which his daughter tried to nail her handsome and highly educated Arab husband with. How could her lawful husband, who is also her first cousin, gamble with her honor and virtue? Mr. Ahmed Sola thought that most probably the wicked Saudi policeman invented those false charges and put them in the mouth of his daughter because they hate her for dressing as a male, running away from her husband's residence, and appearing in public without the abaya, hijab, or niqab. On the day of the trial, the suspect Anaz Ahmed Sola has been escorted inside the Sharia court by 3 elephant-like African female guards. Each one of those gigantic black policewomen equaled in size 3 times the body of Anaz. Shortly after, the accused Sudanese wife has been brought in and kept in chains inside the suspect box. The gay, gambler, drunkard, pimp, and the so-called husband of Anaz walked in. He came in as a free man without chains and guards. He is surrounded by his good-for-nothing Saudi homosexuals, child abusers, gamblers, drunkards, notorious womanizers, and rapists. His Saudi husband is walking with him hand in hand as best friends do. It is a quite common social phenomenon to see male friends in the Muslim world, though they are not gays, walking in the streets while holding hands and sometimes hugging each other in public. Then, they have been offered armchairs in the reserved seats among the VIP, upper crust, elite, and cream of the Riyadh society. Lastly, came the judges of the Riyadh Sharia court. They are 4 in number, but none of them is a qualified judges per se. They are supposed to be called murderers rather than judges. Every Friday, 3 to 5 of their victims are either brutally stoned to death or beheaded by the sword of the executioner. The luckiest of their victims are the ones who walk out of their criminal court with the flogging sentences. Usually, 85% of their victims are women. Those religious judges believe that the woman is Satan. Their prophet made them believe the woman comes in the form of Satan and retreats in the form of the devil. So, whenever a woman has been brought before them, they believe that Satan is standing before their naked eyes, and therefore they judge her as a satanic creature of a sort and send her to the sword of the executioner or the sharp stones of the Muslim worshippers. Exceedingly rare, the so-called devilish female, or the wife of Satan, came inside their holy court, and they spared her life. They love to shed the blood of the woman more than the blood of the man. Each one of them will come in with a predetermined verdict. All 4 of them had already read the charges against the satanic creature Anaz, and all of them had decided to shed her blood through the stones of the faithful Muslims on the following Friday. They also determined not only to condemn her to death, but to participate in her stoning too. They had already met at the biggest mosque in Riyadh city and discussed her abominable crime of having 2 husbands at the same time. They know that their all-wise Allah God has given that privilege to his favorite creature, the man, and withheld it from the wife of Satan, the human female. The Almighty Allah said in his holy book, "Only my darling the man is allowed to have sex with 4 women at the same time." See Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. And in the same verse, Allah said, "If 4 wives are not enough for my beloved creature, the human male, I also permit him to take to bed any number of female slaves." Even underage females are halal for sex to my adorable creature, the man. See Surah Al-Talaq 65, verse 4. He also said only a Muslim man can marry Jewish and Christian women in addition to Muslim women, but a Muslima woman can marry and get fucked by a Muslim man only. No, an infidel dick is allowed to enter the pussy of a Muslim woman, but the Muslim man's penis can fuck an infidel pussy whether as a wife or as a female slave. Many authentic hadiths state that the alleged prophet of God Muhammad was in his early 50s when he established a marriage contract with Aisha, who was a 6-year-old female child at the time. He had real sexual intercourse with Aisha when she was 9, which is validated by many authentic hadiths of the Kutub al-Sitta of the Sunnah and al-Jama, the 6 authentic collections of the hadiths, as well as other Islamic literature such as Sirat Rasul Allah or the biography of the Prophet Muhammad. According to some authentic Islamic traditions, Muhammad used to practice thighing with Aisha when he married her at the age of 6. For 3 years, he molested her through thighing until he raped her at the age of 9. Thighing means a grown-up man placing his erected phallus on the thighs of a female child and rubs it until he ejaculates, and his semen runs all over her private parts. In addition, the Quran states that men can consummate, have sex with, women who have not yet have their monthly menses, Surah Al-Talaq 65, verse 4. All of the major hadiths and books of al-Tafsir, commentaries on the Quran, support this definition. One will seemingly nowadays find Muslim apologists trying to play math games to try and ameliorate Muhammad's position, but the most authentic Islamic books state that Aisha was 9 when she first had sex with Muhammad, and she was 18 when the Prophet died. Muslims are taught in homes, mosques, and schools that the Prophet Muhammad is the most perfect person, and try to emulate him in every aspect is to garner respect and grace from Allah. That particular Friday when they met in the biggest mosque, and after rebuking the accursed devil, the 4 righteous judges of Allah and his infallible prophet agreed upon the stoning sentence. They did not waste their time in discussing the other 49 offenses of the apprehended rebellious Sudanese wife who is another wife of Satan. They know none of those other crimes can allow them to shed her holy blood which she inherited from the Prophet Muhammad. None of those 4 Saudi judges can be persuaded to believe a Sudanese Muslim man or a woman can be related to the Prophet Muhammad. So, it has never entered into their minds that either the rebellious Sudanese wife Anaz or her Arab husband Osama are direct descendants of the Master of Creation, the Prophet Muhammad, who was supposedly sent by Allah as a mercy to mankind. If Muhammad had been sent as a mercy to humanity, then the God who sent him is Satan himself. To tell any man or a woman from the Middle East or North Africa that a Sudanese is an Arab will consider it a silly joke. If they are frank, they will say to you how a person who has black Zanji forefathers or who descended from African Negro ancestors can be an Arab man or an Arab woman. Therefore, this false claim that Osama and Anaz are Arabs and have the holy blood of the Prophet Muhammad running in their veins cannot be believed by anyone except other Sudanese. After those 4 religious murderers have occupied their judgment seats, the 50 charges against the female suspect Inaz Ahmed Salah have been loudly read by a courtman. Since the Islamic Sharia court has no lawyers, Inaz has been asked a few questions by the same man who read the charges. Most of his questions have nothing to do with the trial. He asked her about her age, country of origin, marital status, religion, and some other unnecessary questions. The purpose of those questions is to determine the mental condition of the female suspect, or rather the condemned victim. After answering those questions, if the judges understand that the female suspect is mentally sound, then they must hit her with the judgment of Allah and His Prophet. But before one of those 4 religious terrorists hit Inaz with the stoning sentence, they heard a voice shouting from among the audience, saying very loudly, "Objection." All 4 judges jumped on their seats. They thought an angry terrorist managed to fool the security and entered the courtroom and is about to blow his body up in smithereens and kill along with him all the assembled crowd, including the 4 judges and the rebellious wife. I am Tariq Haroun Al-Ajabo. I am the former husband of the accused Sudanese wife Inaz Ahmed Salah. Although we were forced by a terrorist leader of the Muslim Brotherhood in Pune city to get married against our wishes when we were studying in India, still I had divorced Inaz before she married her cousin Osama Hashim Salah. After speaking those saving words, Tariq took out of his suitcase a divorce certificate and walked forwards and handed it to the courtman. The certificate is a work of forgery which had been issued by an imam in a mosque in Cairo city. It was the proud Sudanese lawyer Mr. Ahmed Salah who bribed an Egyptian imam in a mosque, and through him, he created that divorce certificate of Tariq and Inaz with an earlier date. The courtman held the certificate not knowing what to do with it. One of the 4 criminal judges said in anger, "The divorce certificate is supposed to be handed to them and not to the courtman." Out of fear for his life, the courtman hurriedly handed the document to that angry judge. Then, The 4 religious judges carefully examined the divorce certificate before declaring it to be valid and acceptable proof that the suspected Sudanese woman under examination has not committed the abominable sin of polyandry by marrying 2 Muslim husbands at the same time. One judge asked Tariq a very stupid question. "When you married this woman, did you find her a virgin bride?" Tariq hesitated before he said yes. If he said no, then the cunning judge wanted to accuse Inaz of committing adultery before she married her first husband. In that case, he will have a basis to send her to the stones of her murderers or the sword of her executioner. The stupid judge asked him another question, which is sillier than the previous one. "And when you divorced her, was she still a virgin wife?" This time, Tariq felt like grabbing a chair and throwing it at the empty-headed religious idiot. Luckily, he controlled his righteous wrath and said, "How could she remain a virgin wife after I had married her?" The foolish judge realized his stupidity and therefore remained quiet. Now Tariq's sudden manifestation in the court has created a serious dilemma for the 4 judges and the audience. Each and every one of them had come up with a preconceived idea about the outcome of the trial. They all expected the rebellious Sudanese wife to be judged, condemned, and sent to her murderers to stone her to death on the following Friday. Even Inaz had been told by her female guards, and before them her female interrogators, that she is going to be stoned to death for her abominable deed of polyandry. Her wicked Arab husband also expected her to be stoned. Osama, his Saudi husband, and the 7 Arab rapists of Inaz want to participate in the stoning of their victim and bury their hideous crimes with her. Then the 4 criminal judges whispered a few words among themselves before they reached a final verdict. The 4 crazy judges have completely forgotten all the other 49 offenses of the rebellious runaway Sudanese wife and collectively declared her not guilty of any crime. Therefore, Inaz Ahmed Sulla walked out of the Sharia court a free woman, walking behind her savior, the so-called black, ugly Sudanese crow, Tariq Haroon al-Ajabo. Chapter 23. The Fugitive Wife. The unexpected verdict of not guilty by the Riyadh Sharia court has been rejected by everyone, and that including the Saudi police authorities and the royal family. How a woman who has committed all those 49 un-Islamic offenses was allowed to walk out of the holy judgment court of Allah and his prophet Muhammad a free woman. Such a ruling, if not blocked, it will encourage other Muslim women to rebel against the authorities of their husbands and fathers. Any Saudi wife can imitate the rebellious Sudanese wife and run away from her husband's house. Any Muslim girl can dress up as a man and roam freely in public. On the basis of which Sharia law, the 4 judges had absolved the rebellious woman from those charges of religious crimes and social deception? That is one of the many questions which everybody wants to know the answer to. Some of the Sudanese who attended the trial, including the gay husband and his evil Saudi friends, have been interviewed by the media. They all said that the 4 judges examined only the charge of having 2 husbands at the same time and purposely ignored all the other 49 charges. They further said that the former black African husband of the rebellious Sudanese wife, who is known as Tariq Haroon al-Ajabo, appeared in person and produced evidence that he had already divorced his ex-wife Inaz Ahmed Sulla prior to her marriage with her Arab husband Osama Hashim Sulla. On the basis of that single male witness, the 4 judges of Sharia court declared her not guilty of any crime. They purposely ignored the other 49 offenses of the accursed Sudanese woman. Many of them believed that those 4 Saudi judges had been bribed by the Sudanese family of Inaz. Most probably, her Arab father, who is a well-known lawyer in Khartoum, had contacted them and through a secret deal deposited huge amounts of money in their bank accounts. Due to the public protest, the fear of encouraging other women to rebel against their husbands and fathers, and the obvious error that the 4 judges had committed, the Riyadh police issued an arrest warrant against Inaz Ahmed Sulla. In fact, the warrant has been jointly issued by a senior official from the Ministry of Religious Affairs and a magistrate from the Ministry of Justice, and on behalf of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which authorized the immediate arrest and detention of the wrongly released Sudanese woman. According to this new warrant, the rebellious Sudanese wife has to stand trial again, and justice must be served in the interest of the public. A new set of religious judges has been appointed to look into such a serious matter. Those new judges have been carefully selected by the Supreme Sharia Court. Their selection is approved by the Grand Mufti of the Islamic Houses of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. One of those new judges has been interviewed by the most popular TV channel in Riyadh City. He predicted the new ruling of the Sharia court. According to him, the rebellious Sudanese wife may get up to 5 years imprisonment term and 200 lashes for her all other 49 offenses, which had been overlooked by her former judges. The judge knows that before the executioners will complete half of the 200 whips, the rebellious Sudanese wife will die through beating her naked body. So, the new punishment will be more cruel slow death than stoning or beheading. The day and date of the trial have been scheduled and made public through all media avenues. The populace has been encouraged to attend the second trial. Consequently, the scheduled retrial of the so-called rebellious Sudanese wife received more publicity than her first trial. Nevertheless, when the Riyadh police decided to rearrest Anaz, they could not find her or know where to find her. They searched everywhere for her, but all their efforts wasted in vain. They went to her Arab husband's apartment and thoroughly searched it, but they could not find her there. They even looked for her inside the Sudanese embassy, but no diplomat supplied any information about her. After 3 days of intensive searches, the Riyadh police announced that the rebellious Sudanese woman most probably fled out of the city. Now the police began to refer to her as the fugitive wife again. A huge financial reward is promised to any good citizen who can direct the police to her hiding place. After that, the Riyadh police began to look for her former African husband who defended her in court. They thought he might be the one who assisted her to escape or hide her somewhere in town. No matter where the police searched for Tariq, they also could not find him. From the hotel management, the police came to know that he checked out on the same day the trial was conducted. Therefore, Tariq also became a wanted suspect. By then, the two fugitive Sudanese lovers' photos have been displayed in every nook and cranny of the capital city and other major cities such as Jeddah, Dammam, Khobar, Khamis Mashat, and Buraydah. Even their photos have been sent to the two holy cities of Muslims, Mecca and Medina. As a matter of fact, the so-called rebellious Sudanese wife Anaz had escaped from those bloodthirsty murderers through a divine intuition. It was her lover Tariq who divined the idea of an immediate escape. He knew those religious judges had made a major blunder. Thus, he anticipated that a higher Islamic court or religious authority will definitely overrule their judgment and demand the rearrest and retrial of his Arab girlfriend Anaz. After she had been declared not guilty, her handcuffs and chains were removed from her body by one of her female guards, and the terribly abused Sudanese wife had been allowed to go out of court as a free woman. Accordingly, Tariq took hold of her left hand as soon as she came out of the courtroom, and he hurried her away. He then stopped the taxi driver and gave him the address of the 5-star hotel where he is staying. Upon their arrival, Tariq checked out of the hotel and received his passport from the receptionist and left. Meanwhile, Anaz was waiting for him in the same cab. After that, the two friends went to a car rental and rented a small car. Since Anaz has no passport or any traveling documents, the lovers decided to make their escape through Yemen. The friends knew from Riyadh City the nearest countries are the United Arab Emirates and the state of Qatar. But without a passport, Anaz will not be allowed to enter any one of those Gulf countries. Due to the war between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Yemen, the Saudi and Yemeni border is the only exit available for Tariq and Anaz. The two lovers purchased a map of Saudi Arabia and began their flight. They also bought food, many bottles of water, soft drinks, biscuits, dates, dry meat in tins, and some off-counter medications. They knew they had to travel for many days before they could reach their destination. They have to pass through many towns and villages. Anaz hid inside a black burqa. It was her African boyfriend's idea to hide inside a black abaya and niqab. Everywhere they went, the lovers introduced themselves as husband and wife. When the police warrant is issued for the rearrest of the rebellious Sudanese wife, the Sudanese lovers have already reached Khamis Mashat city. Their second stop is Nadran city. During their long and hazardous journey, the lovers avoided staying in any big hotel or small motel. They knew no hotel in Saudi Arabia will allow a man and a woman to check in unless they provide their marriage certificate or their foreign passports in order to prove their blood relationship in case they claim to be a father and his daughter or a brother and his sister. Therefore, the lovers always slept in their rented car. The unjustly separated Arab girlfriend from her African boyfriend has become extremely happy when they met again after a separation of over 1 year and a half. Although their escape is full of hardships and dangers, the lovers still have considered it as the happiest time of their lives. As they did in Sudan and India, Inaz and Tariq expressed their passions through hugging, kissing, and fondling. They remained faithful to their pure platonic love. Although she knew she is no more a virgin wife, still Inaz remained faithful to her marriage bond with her cousin Osama. She decided not to have any sexual intercourse with a boy who is not her husband, and she will not marry any other person until she gets divorced from her Arab husband. Therefore, the Arab girlfriend did not have sex with her African boyfriend. But this time, the Arab girl Inaz promised her African lover Tariq that, if they manage to reach safely to Sudan, she will demand a divorce from her Arab husband Osama Hashim Salah. Then she will try to convince her father to agree to her marriage with her good boyfriend, Tariq Harun al-Ajabo, who saved her life by defending her in the Sharia court in Saudi Arabia. Tariq became extremely overjoyed when he heard the unexpected promise of his Arab girlfriend Inaz. Even after her promise of marrying him, deep down in his heart, her African boyfriend Tariq continued to doubt the fulfillment of such an unattainable marriage. He still believes they are unmarriageable lovers.